You're listening to eLearnChat, where talk is knowledge.
Hello and welcome to eLearnChat, our new podcast featuring prominent leaders, shakers, and movers in the e-learning and training industry. My name is zanotti, and I'll be your host for these chats. This is part 2 of our chat with Josh Cavalier from Lodestone Digital, also known as Captain Captivate. Hope you enjoy it.
So ideally, the instructor is really truly doing a blended e-learning approach. They're not only live, but they're also handling the remote users. How many students do you recommend in that kind of remote environment?
Well, that's a good question because we've seen various levels, as we've rolled this out, and it does get difficult, I would say, once you get past 10 online. It is doable, but you would need a TA. You're going to have to go ahead and roll up and bring another person in there to help support what you're doing. Some folks might even recommend have a TA in there all the time. Now, when we first started doing our Lodestone Live a few years back, we actually brought in a video producer to help produce what we considered shows. There were 2-hour episodes that were presented live online with a video producer, so they would announce the instructor, and it was more of a television production methodology that we had. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we can't, I'd love to bring that kind of resources and that kind of quality into what we're doing with the stand-up or the longer-based format, but I think folks get, that gets old real quick, and that format really doesn't lend itself to a longer event that's online. We kind of pulled back from that, and we just kept with our core, this is the way that the instruction should be delivered. Let's go ahead and make it the best that we can make it both online and in the classroom at the same time.
The platform you chose is Adobe Connect Pro at this point?
Yeah, that's correct. And the reason why we went with Connect is obviously, we have such a good relationship with Adobe. We really have a really good understanding of how that environment works, and we know how to modify the environment so that we can add assets in there or enhance, create custom pods, do different things that we want to do with it, as opposed to using a system that we can't modify or change the way that we want to. Also, we think that the ability to go ahead and use the Flash player allows us to get into different environments without having a download. Now, that doesn't happen all the time. There's always certain situations where there's possible firewall item, but we typically can work around that.
Where do you see training going in the future, whether it's online or stand-up?
Wow. There's so many different things that are going on. I think that we always get enamored with the technology, and having been in this long enough, it's what's the flavor of the week. And so I've learned to really avoid being swept up into the hype, especially with the recent announcements from Apple and the devices that they're coming out with. It's just a different form factor. And when you boil it down, it always comes down to making sure that you have incredibly good content and you have incredibly good delivery methods and sound instructional design principles. Now, as an illustrator and as an artist, I always want to make it look good, but it's got to be real tight. And so it doesn't really matter what form factor it is, or whether it's live and online, or if it's in a workbook. We're always going to have these different modifications of how we consume media, but it always goes back to how good is it written, and can you understand it? Can you follow the flow? Does it make sense? And are folks retaining the knowledge? That's the key. If somebody comes in and takes an online class and they don't remember anything I said, then I'm wasting my time and I'm wasting my client's time and money. I don't want that to happen. I want it to be a memorable experience. So how do we take advantage of the environment? Same thing with new technologies coming out, e-books or electronic books, and thinking about if I go ahead and write a manual and I record a training video, wouldn't it be great if I can go ahead and combine both of those? Well, I can do that, but is that the right way to deliver the media? Is that the right way to deliver the knowledge, and will people retain it? And so that's always the challenge, and we'll always have that challenge, whether it be augmented reality or all these other new things that are coming out. And here's a really good example. 3D. I can't tell you how many times in my career where everyone's like, oh, this is it. This is 3D. Here we go. Everyone's going to be doing it. And the same thing happens. They find out it's very expensive. A lot of folks don't know how to produce it, and it takes too much time. So, when folks are like, well, what do you think about Second Life? I'm like, please. And the joke is, I have problems even dealing with my first life, a little Second Life comes up. But it's so true. There's very few companies that want to go in and create models and train their people of the environment. And by that time, they're like, well, can't you just make a video? Yeah.
Right. And also, like you said, is it even relevant?
Right, exactly. So, again, that always goes back to, at the core, the job that we're trying to perform is knowledge transfer and retention. What is the best way to do that? And, I'm trying to do it online live and in the classroom at the same time. Is it the best way of doing it? I don't know yet. We're still making sure that, folks are getting everything that they need and getting feedback from them and tweaking the environment and tweaking the delivery and what folks are experiencing. We feel that we have a methodology that works well, but there's always room for improvement, and it's always going to change. I mean, in the next 5 to 10 years, when you have folks like Google and some of the other carriers that are out there that are going to push this, massive amounts of broadband all over the place, that's going to give us additional opportunities to deliver our content. And it's exciting. I love that. But it still goes back to, if I can go ahead and have a live video conversation in real time with somebody across the world and train them, but the training isn't effective, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that you have live real-time video allowing a really cool conversation. It still goes back to having that quality, having that instructional design, and making sure that you have a way of delivering it so that they retain the information.
Well, that sounds great. And Josh, I really appreciate you joining us today. And how can people get a hold of you? What's your website?
Sure. Yeah, I got a couple of them. You can find us at lodestone.com, and that's LODESTONE.com. Also at captivate.com. You can find us up there. And once you get to lodestone.com, we got links to Facebook and YouTube and all the other social media sites.
Well, again, thanks for the time in the interview, and we wish you the best for this year.
Thanks, Rick. I really appreciate it.
Need help with your e-learning development? Visit www.relate.com.